My name is Natalie Mercer. I'm 35 years old, and the sentence that ended my marriage was spoken in my own kitchen while I was making coffee for a birthday trip my husband had already decided to cancel. He didn't yell it. That would have been easier. He said it the way people say something obvious, natural, settled, like weather. My family comes first, you come second. The worst part was not that he believed it. The worst part was how long I had already been living inside that truth before he finally said it out loud. My husband, Evan, was 33. We had been married for 5 years, and for most of that time, his family had not simply been part of our life. They had been stitched into it so tightly that I could not tell where our marriage ended and their demands began. His mother had a key to our house, not for emergencies, not in the normal, respectful way people claim they have a key and then never use it. She used it. She would let herself in on weekday afternoons while I was working upstairs and comment on the state of the kitchen like she was conducting a property inspection. She would open the refrigerator, stand there frowning, then text Evan suggestions about what I should be buying. Once, I came downstairs and found her rearranging my cabinets because, in her words, this layout just makes no sense for a real family. A real family. I remember standing there with a mug in my hand, smiling so tightly my jaw hurt, while Evan just laughed and told me, "She means well." That sentence covered a lot of sins in our marriage. His brother treated our garage like rented storage he never paid for. Boxes, tools, rusted gym equipment, some broken dirt bike frame he swore he was fixing up. Every time I asked when he was taking it back, Evan would say his brother had a lot going on right now. His sister was no better. She had a way of appearing at dinner with that exhausted face already prepared, the one that meant money was about to become the main course. Rent help, car trouble, medical bill, deposit for a new place. Always temporary, always urgent, always somehow landing in my lap, because I was the one with the steadier income, the one who budgeted, the one who believed helping once would actually mean once. It never did. It meant again, and again, and again, until generosity stopped feeling like kindness and started feeling like a tax for being married to him. At the beginning, I told myself it was cultural, emotional, normal for close families. I told myself I was lucky to marry into people who cared about each other so fiercely. It took me about a year to understand that what they called closeness was really access. Access to our weekends, access to our home, access to my peace, access to my money. His brother needed $3,000 for a business opportunity that never materialized. His sister needed a short-term rental rescue that somehow stretched over 4 months. His parents needed help replacing their air conditioning unit, and before I understood what was happening, Evan was standing in the living room explaining why we had to cover most of it because they're getting older. Every request came dressed as duty. Every refusal was treated like betrayal. And every time I pushed back, even gently, Evan would get this look on his face. Not angry at first, disappointed, as if I were failing some test decent wives were supposed to pass without complaint. I wish I could say I fought harder from the start. I didn't. I made excuses for him because that is what love looks like when it starts turning into self-erasure. It does not feel dramatic. It feels gradual. You tell yourself it is just a rough season. You tell yourself families go through hard times. You tell yourself once this crisis passes, things will settle. But in his family, there was always another crisis already warming up in the next room. The birthday trip should have been simple. That is what makes it sting even now. We had planned it for months. A coast vacation. Nice hotel already booked. Time off approved. Bags half packed in our bedroom. I had even bought a new dress I had not shown him yet, because I liked the idea of surprising him at dinner. Candlelight and ocean outside the windows. One last attempt at softness in a marriage that had begun to feel crowded. I was genuinely excited. That morning, sunlight was coming through the kitchen blinds in narrow gold lines. The house was quiet except for the sound of the coffee machine and the low hum of the refrigerator. I remember feeling calm in a way I had not in weeks. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and answered immediately. His mother. Of course. I was scooping coffee into the filter, only half listening at first. Evan leaned against the counter, giving the occasional clipped response, the kind that told me something was wrong, but not yet how wrong. Then his tone changed. Softened. Resolved. Of course we'll help, he said. I'll cancel our trip. I froze with the spoon still in my hand. For a second, I honestly thought I had misheard him. I turned slowly. What did you just say? He put his hand over the phone and looked irritated that I had asked. My brother needs us. That is not what I asked. He exhaled sharply, already tired of me. He needs someone to co-sign a loan. How much? He hesitated just long enough to tell me the number mattered. 8,000. I laughed once, not because it was funny, because something inside me had just hit a wall. We are not canceling. His eyes sharpened. Natalie. No. I set the spoon down carefully. We are not canceling our trip, so your brother can take out another loan he is going to default on. His face changed then. Not guilt, not conflict, offense. The offense of a man who had been defied in a script he thought was already written. He told his mother he would call her back, ended the call, then turned to me fully. He's in a bind. He is always in a bind. This is different. It is never different. It is just more expensive. He stared at me like I had become someone unrecognizable overnight. Though the truth was worse. I was finally saying things I had been swallowing for years. We're helping him, he said. I folded my arms. No. You want to help him. Use your money. Your half, not our trip and not my income. His jaw tensed. That's selfish. That word. The favorite weapon of people who have grown comfortable spending your life as if it belongs to them. Selfish, I repeated. You mean because I want to go on the vacation we already paid for instead of underwriting your brother's next bad decision? He's my brother, and I'm your wife. The room went still. The coffee machine gave one last sputter and clicked off behind me. His expression turned flat in a way that frightened me more than shouting would have. It was the face of someone no longer trying to soften the truth. My family comes first, he said. You come second. You knew that when you married me. Silence settled over the room so hard I could hear everything. The refrigerator, the pipes, a car outside, my own heartbeat turning slow and heavy inside my chest. I looked at him and understood all at once why every argument in our marriage had ended the same way. Why every holiday had bent toward their preferences, why every financial decision had somehow included people who did not live in our house, why I always felt like I was trying to earn a place that should have already been mine. Because I had never really been his first home. I had been his extension cord, useful, reliable, replaceable. Say that again, I said quietly. He frowned, like repetition would make it easier to accept. My family comes first. That's just reality. I nodded once. It hurt. But not in the chaotic way heartbreak is usually described. It hurt with precision, like a bone being set without anesthesia. Good to know, I said. His shoulders loosened slightly, as if he thought I had finally understood my role. So you get it. Oh, I get it. I walked past him and headed upstairs. He followed me. Where are you going? To pack. His voice sharpened with relief and irritation mixed together. Exactly. Thank you. I turned in the doorway of our bedroom and looked at him for what felt like the first time in months. For my birthday trip, I said. You can stay here and help your family. I'm still going. He blinked. What? I'm not canceling because your brother is irresponsible. You can't just go without me. Apparently, I said, opening my suitcase, I can. He stepped into the room. Natalie, don't do this. I almost smiled at that, as if this were the unreasonable thing. Not the years of pressure, not the money. Not the kitchen confession that I ranked below every blood relative with a crisis and a handout. My refusal. He kept talking while I pulled dresses from hangers and folded them into the suitcase with steady hands. This is what marriage is, he said, supporting each other. I zipped a side compartment. Interesting definition. Sounds more like supporting your family while I finance it. You're being cold. No, I said, I'm being accurate. His face darkened. You don't understand family. That one landed differently, because for years I had tried so hard to understand his, tried to fit into it, tried to be generous enough, patient enough, useful enough, that maybe someday I would stop feeling like an outsider paying membership dues. Now I just felt tired. I understand enough, I said. I understand exactly where I stand. He called me dramatic, then selfish again, then cruel. Every word sounded thinner than the last, because they all depended on one thing. That I still believed preserving his comfort was my job. For the first time I didn't. I finished packing in silence. He stood there for a while, waiting for me to crack, apologize, negotiate, choose him in the way he had never chosen me. I didn't. When I rolled the suitcase past him, he moved aside, not out of respect, but out of shock. At the front door, I paused only long enough to grab my sunglasses and car keys from the table. Behind me, he said my name one more time. Not softly, not lovingly, a warning. As if there would be consequences for stepping outside the role he had assigned me. He was right about that. There would be consequences, just not the ones he thought. I left for the coast alone. By the time I reached the highway, my phone had already started lighting up with his calls. I didn't answer. I let the phone ring until the screen went dark. Then it lit up again. Evan. Again. By the fourth call, I turned the phone face down on the passenger seat and kept driving. The coast was 3 hours away, which turned out to be exactly enough time for the first layer of hurt to burn off and leave something colder underneath. Not peace, not yet, but structure, the beginning of it. The sky was bright, washed pale blue, and traffic thinned as I got farther from the city. I stopped once for gas and coffee at a station off the highway, and while the cashier handed me my receipt, I caught my reflection in the glass cooler doors behind her. I looked normal. That was the strange part. Not ruined, not shaking, not like a woman whose husband had just told her, with casual certainty, that she came second in her own marriage. I just looked tired and very awake. By the time I reached the hotel, Evan had called 15 times and sent a string of messages that moved in a predictable arc. Come back. We need to talk. You're overreacting. My mother is asking what to tell everyone. This is embarrassing. Natalie, answer me. You're acting insane. That last one almost made me laugh. Because there is something almost elegant about the speed with which people will call you unstable the moment you stop cooperating. I checked in under my name, took my room key, and rode the elevator up alone. The room was beautiful. Ocean view. White curtains lifting softly in the air from the cracked balcony door. Sunlight spilled across the bed in long, warm rectangles. There was a bottle of sparkling water on the table, 2 glasses, and a folded note welcoming us for our stay. Us. I set my bag down and stood there staring at that word longer than I should have. Then I picked up the note, tore it cleanly in half, and dropped it in the trash. That was the first thing I did. I threw away the fiction. About an hour later, my friend Daniel arrived. I had called him from the road, somewhere between anger and clarity, and said, "Do you want to come to the coast for the weekend?" He had paused just long enough to understand there was a story behind the question. Then he said, "Do you need company or an alibi?" Probably both. He showed up with a duffel bag, sunglasses, and exactly the kind of restraint I needed. He did not pry in the hallway. He just looked at me, looked at the second set of room keys in my hand, and said, "You okay?" "No," I said truthfully. He nodded once. "All right, we'll work with that." We had dinner by the water that first night. The restaurant overlooked the cliffs, and the windows caught the last of the sunset until the whole room glowed amber. Couples sat around us leaning toward each other, laughing quietly over wine, touching wrists, sharing dessert. I thought it would make me feel worse. It didn't. It made me feel finished. Not fully finished with the marriage, maybe. That would take longer. But finished with pretending the shape of it was something other than what it had become. Daniel listened while I told him everything. Not just the sentence in the kitchen. All of it. The key. The garage. The rent money. The emergencies. The way every sacrifice had been framed as temporary, loving, necessary. The way every objection had somehow turned into a flaw in my character. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he said, "Natalie, that's not a marriage. They turned you into a payment plan." I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my drink. And maybe it was the wine, or the exhaustion, or the relief of hearing the truth from someone outside the system. But for the first time in months, I felt something loosen inside me. Not because it was over, because I had stopped trying to make it make sense. The next morning, I posted pictures. Not many. Just enough. A shot of the ocean from the balcony. My coffee on the patio table with the water in the background. One photo Daniel took of me at dinner, hair blown back by the wind, smiling in a way I had not smiled at home in a long time. I knew Evan would see them. That was not the reason I posted them. But I would be lying if I said I minded. He texted almost immediately. "So this is funny to you? Then, you brought another man? Then, you're humiliating me." I stared at that message for a moment. Humiliating him. As though I had been the one casually canceling my spouse's birthday trip to rescue an irresponsible sibling. As though I had forced his priorities into the open. As though my refusal to disappear quietly inside his version of marriage was somehow the betrayal. I typed one sentence. "You did that in the kitchen." Then I muted the conversation and went downstairs for breakfast. The trip was good. That is another detail people do not like when they hear stories like this. They want devastation to look theatrical. They want a woman in collapse, staring at the sea and crying into room service pancakes. But I had a good time. I slept deeply. I walked on the beach at sunrise with my shoes in my hand and cold water curling around my ankles. I read half a novel on the balcony. I ate expensive seafood and ordered dessert without asking anyone if we should split it. I sat beside someone who did not ask me to subsidize a family crisis between appetizers. It was not revenge. It was contrast. And contrast can be brutal. Because once you feel the absence of a burden clearly enough, it becomes very hard to volunteer for it again. When I got home 2 days later, the house felt different before I even put my key in the door. Not because anything visible had changed, because I had. Evan was waiting in the kitchen. Same kitchen, same counters, same place he had rearranged my marriage with one sentence. He was standing with both hands braced on the island like he had been rehearsing a speech. "You're back," he said. "I live here." His face tightened. "You ignored me all weekend." "Yes." "You took another man on our trip." "I took a friend on my trip." "Our trip." I set my bag down by the stairs and met his eyes. "You canceled your part of it when you decided your brother's loan mattered more." His mouth opened, closed, then reset into outrage. "That is not what happened." "It is exactly what happened." He moved toward me, not threateningly, just with that familiar confidence of someone used to pushing until the other person gives way. "I said we needed to help my family, and I said no. You don't get to just decide that." I actually smiled at that, small and humorless. That is interesting coming from the person who thought he could cancel my birthday trip without asking. His expression flickered. I saw it then, the first tiny crack in his certainty. Not remorse, something closer to alarm. Because this was new. I was not pleading. I was not negotiating. I was not trying to be understood. I was simply no longer cooperating. "We need to move past this," he said, changing tactics. Softer now, wounded, reasonable. "You made your point." My point. As if my dignity had been a dramatic exercise. "As of today," I said, "things are changing." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done financing your family." "You already made that clear." "I'm also done subsidizing you." The silence after that was sharp. He stared at me. "Excuse me?" I walked past him, took a folder from my work bag, and laid it on the kitchen island between us. Inside was a printed breakdown. Mortgage, utilities, internet, groceries, insurance, everything. I had spent the last night of the trip in the hotel room with a calculator and my laptop, going through every shared expense from the last 12 months. Not because I enjoy paperwork, because numbers are clean when people are not. He looked down at the pages, then back up at me. "What is this?" "This is your half." His face went blank. "My half of what?" "Everything." He gave a short, incredulous laugh. "Natalie, stop." I already redirected my paycheck to a new account this morning. That got his full attention. "What?" "I've been covering around 70% of our household expenses for years," I said. "That ends now. Starting this month, I pay half, not 70. Not emergency overages because your sister cannot make rent. Not surprise cash transfers because your mother says it's urgent. Half." He pushed the papers away like they had offended him. "You're being ridiculous." "No, I've been ridiculous for 5 years. This is correction." His voice rose. "We're married." "Yes. You don't split things like roommates." "That depends," I said. "Roommates usually rank each other above outside emergencies." He flinched. Just slightly. But he flinched. "I didn't mean it like that," he said. I tilted my head. "Then how did you mean it?" He had no answer ready, which told me he had not expected to need one. In his mind, the sentence should have landed, hurt me, then disappeared back into the air once it had done its job. Too late. He tried a different angle. "We both know I make less than you. And we both know where your money goes." "That's my family." "Yes," I said, "exactly." He stared at me as if I were speaking another language. Maybe I was. The language of consequence. That evening, he found out I had already made another change. He came into my office, what had until recently been a cluttered spare room where he dumped hobby supplies, unopened packages, and half-finished projects, and held up his wallet. My card got declined. I looked up from my laptop. "Which card?" "The Visa." "Oh," I said. "Yes, I removed you." For a second, he just stood there, not understanding. Then his whole face flushed dark red. "You what?" "It was my account. You were an authorized user. You are not anymore." "You cannot just do that." "I already did. That card is for household stuff." "No," I said. "That card was for whatever story your family was telling this week." His jaw clenched so hard I thought I might hear his teeth grind. "How am I supposed to pay for things?" I held his stare, like an adult. He actually looked wounded then, which might have moved me if I had not watched him spend years confusing access with love. "This is insane," he said quietly. "No," I said. "What was insane was expecting me to bankroll people who do not respect me while you stand there and call it marriage." He stepped farther into the room. "You're punishing me." "I'm adjusting to the information you gave me." "That's not the same thing." "It is when the information is that I come second." He opened his mouth again, but I was done. "Close the door on your way out," I said, and went back to work. For the next few days, he cycled through every strategy people use when entitlement starts losing oxygen. Anger, silence, charm, disbelief, guilt. One night he leaned in the bedroom doorway while I folded laundry and said, "So that's it? 5 years and you just turned cold?" I smoothed one of my blouses over the bedspread before answering. "No," I said. 5 years and I finally stopped being useful." That hit him harder than shouting would have. Because it was true. A few days later, he went to his parents' house and stayed there for 2 nights. I think he expected me to panic, to miss him, to send some conciliatory text asking when he was coming home. I didn't. I used the time. The spare room became my office for real. I bought shelves, a new desk, a reading chair by the window. I boxed up his craft supplies, random electronics, old sports gear, and the pile of unfinished projects he had been meaning to get to for 3 years, labeled each box neatly, and moved them into the garage beside his brother's junk. When he came home and saw the room, he stopped dead in the doorway. "What did you do?" I swiveled slightly in the desk chair and looked at him. "I made myself a workspace. That was my room." I let the silence sit there just long enough. Then I said, "Interesting. I thought this was our house." He glared at me. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." He looked around at the shelves, the lamp, the organized files, the framed print I had hung over the desk. The room was calm, intentional, mine. He hated that immediately. Not because of the furniture, because space, once claimed, has a way of making other claims possible. We barely spoke after that. And the less I explained myself, the more it seemed to unravel him. I joined a woodworking class on Thursday nights, signed up for a weekend softball league, started making plans that did not include him. If he asked where I was going, I said out. If he asked when I would be back, I said later. Every Sunday, he would stand by the door around 4 in the afternoon, keys in hand, and ask the same question. "Are you coming to dinner?" Meaning his parents' house, his mother's overcooked roast, his sister's complaints, his brother's newest mess, disguised as bad luck. The same table where I had smiled through years of subtle extraction while they acted as though my presence, my labor, and my money were all part of one shared buffet. "No," I would say. The first time, he laughed like I was joking. The second time, he looked offended. By the fourth, he looked unsettled. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not going." "Why not?" I picked up my bag. "I have plans." "What plans?" I smiled without warmth. Mine. It drove him crazy. He was used to access, used to accounting for me the way his family accounted for me. Available, compliant, financially relevant. Now I was simply absent. And absence, when someone feels entitled to your presence, can sound a lot like rebellion. The tension in the house changed shape. It was no longer loud. It became quiet in a deliberate way. A war fought through closed doors, separate routines, separate groceries, separate evenings. He started watching me the way people watch a system fail, confused, irritated, vaguely afraid that once one part stops working, the rest might follow. He was right. The rest was coming. Because families like his never stop at discomfort. They only notice you have limits when they finally need something large enough to test them. And very soon they would. It happened on a Tuesday night. I remember that because I had just come back from my woodworking class, hands still smelling faintly of sawdust and varnish, when I noticed the lights in the living room were already on. All of them. Every overhead light. Too bright. Too intentional. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me slowly. Voices. More than one. I didn't need to walk in to know who it was. I already knew. Evan's family never came alone when it mattered. They arrived in groups. Pressure works better that way. When I rounded the corner into the living room, they were all there. His mother on the edge of the couch, hands clenched together, eyes already red like she'd rehearsed the crying. His father standing, pacing, jaw tight. His sister near the window, arms folded, watching the door like she'd been waiting specifically for me. And his brother, sitting in my chair, head down, elbows on his knees, looking like something dragged in from the rain. Evan stood when he saw me. Relief flashed across his face. Like I was the solution. Like I had walked into the room carrying $35,000 in my purse. "Natalie," he said quickly, "we need to talk." I set my bag down by the door. "I can see that." No one said hello. No one asked how I was. They had skipped straight to the part where I was expected to fix something. His father stepped forward first. Direct. Efficient. "We need your help." There it was. Not a question. A statement. I looked at him for a moment, then at the rest of them. Help with what? His mother let out a soft, broken sound like the question itself hurt her. "My son," she started, voice trembling. Evan cut in. Faster. Cleaner. "He's in trouble." I shifted my gaze to the brother. "For once, be specific." Silence stretched just long enough to confirm it was bad. Then Evan said it. "He owes money." "How much?" Another hesitation. Longer this time. 35,000. The number settled into the room like a weight. Heavy, ugly, familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten, because it wasn't the first time I had heard a number attached to his mistakes. Just the biggest, I exhaled slowly. And what happened to the 8,000 he needed last week? His sister snapped immediately. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. His father stepped closer. This is serious. The people he owes are not my problem, I said calmly. That landed harder than shouting. His mother started crying in earnest now, shoulders shaking. They hurt him, she said. They already hurt him. I looked at the brother again, bruising along his jaw. A split at the corner of his lip. Real, not staged. Consequences, finally visible. And still my first instinct was not sympathy. It was recognition. This was the bill. This was what 5 years of just this once eventually became. Evan moved toward me, lowering his voice like that would make this more reasonable. Nat, listen, this is different. He's in real danger. I met his eyes. So, he should have thought about that before gambling money he didn't have. The word landed like a slap. Gambling. No one had said it yet. They didn't want to. It sounded worse than business opportunity. It sounded like choice. His sister flinched. It wasn't like that. It's exactly like that. His brother finally spoke, voice rough. Look, I messed up, okay? But these guys are still not my responsibility. Evan grabbed my arm lightly. Please. I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. Don't. He let go slowly. His father's voice hardened. We need 35,000 by the end of the week. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the certainty was unbelievable. We need, I repeated. No, you need. We are family, his mother cried. I tilted my head slightly. Am I? Silence. Sharp. Uncomfortable. No one answered. Because they couldn't. Because the last time that question had come up, the answer had been very clear. My family comes first. You come second. I let that sit there. Then I said quietly, you told me exactly where I stand. Evan's expression shifted, panic threading through it now. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. His father stepped forward again, trying a different angle. What kind of person turns their back on family in a situation like this? I held his gaze. The kind who was told she isn't part of it. His sister scoffed. Oh my God, you're really going to make this about you right now? I didn't even look at her. Yes, because it was. Because everything they were asking me to fix came from the same place that had spent years making it clear I was only valuable when I was useful. His brother shifted in the chair. I can pay it back. No, I said immediately. You can't. His face flushed. You don't know that. I do, I said, because you haven't paid back a single dollar you've borrowed in the last 5 years. That hit hard. His sister jumped in. That's not fair. It's accurate. His mother moved closer to me, reaching out like she might take my hands. I stepped back. She stopped. We're begging you, she said, voice breaking. He could die. There it was. The ultimate pressure point. Fear. Urgency. Life or death. I felt it. Of course I did. I'm not made of stone. But right behind that feeling was something stronger. Clarity. If I said yes now, there would never be a no later. Ever. I would not just be second. I would be permanent. Permanent solution. Permanent safety net. Permanent consequence absorber. I shook my head once. No. The word dropped into the room like a final answer. Evan stared at me. Not angry now. Not even shocked. Just stunned. Like the concept itself didn't fit inside his understanding of me. You're really doing this, he said. I'm really not doing this. His father's voice rose. He could be killed. And that would be because of his choices. His sister snapped. You could prevent it. He could have prevented it. His brother slammed his hand against his knee. This isn't a joke. I'm not laughing. The tension snapped then. All at once. Voices overlapping. Accusations. Desperation. Anger. Evan stepped into it, louder now, raw. If you don't help, I don't know what happens to him. I met his eyes steadily. Then you should help him. With what? He demanded. I don't have that kind of money. That was the truth finally showing itself. Clean. Simple. Ugly. He needed me. Not as a partner. As a resource. I nodded slowly. Exactly. His breathing changed. Shallow. Fast. Something close to fear. But not fear for his brother. Fear of losing the solution. Then we figure it out together, he said quickly. Loans. Whatever it takes. No. His father stepped closer again. Voice low and dangerous now. What kind of woman are you? I didn't flinch. The kind who listens when she's told she comes second. That shut him up. For half a second. Then his mother broke down completely, sobbing loudly. His sister started yelling. His brother cursed under his breath. And Evan just stared at me, like I had become a stranger. Please, he said again, softer now. Just this once. I almost smiled. Because that phrase had been the foundation of everything. Just this once, over and over again, until once became always. I shook my head. No. The room went very still. And then he said it. The thing he thought would move me. The thing he thought still mattered. If you don't help, Evan said, voice tight, I'll divorce you. Silence. Complete. Total. Even his family went quiet, waiting, watching. Because in their minds, that was the final card. Marriage. Security. Fear of loss. The thing that should pull me back into place. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who had stood in our kitchen and ranked me second without hesitation. At the man who had watched his family drain our life piece by piece and called it normal. At the man who now thought threatening to leave me would make me stay. Okay, I said. He blinked. What? Go ahead. His face went blank. Divorce me. The words landed harder than anything I had said all night, because they weren't emotional. They were calm. Final. You don't mean that, he said. I do. His sister exploded first. Are you insane? His mother started wailing again. His father stepped forward like he might actually do something. But Evan just stood there, frozen, because for the first time, the script wasn't working. For the first time, I wasn't responding the way I was supposed to. I'll file myself, I added quietly. Save you the trouble. That's when everything broke. His sister started screaming at me, every insult she had thrown fast and loud. His mother joined in between sobs. His father's face twisted with anger. His brother just looked at me like I had personally signed his death warrant. And Evan still hadn't moved. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out! His sister spun toward me. This is his house too. I met her eyes. This is my home too. And even if it wasn't, I added, voice steady, you don't get to stand in my living room and demand money from me. His father took a step forward. I didn't move. Get out, I repeated, or I call the police. That did it. Not because they respected me. Because escalation suddenly had consequences they couldn't control. They started moving. Angry. Loud. Dragging the moment out with words and threats and accusations. His mother clinging to Evan's arm. His sister still shouting. His brother avoiding my eyes as he passed me. Evan stopped in the doorway. Turned back. For a second, I thought he might say something real. Something honest. Something that wasn't about money or pressure or control. He didn't. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Then he left. The door closed. The house went quiet. And for the first time in a long time, it actually felt like mine. The silence didn't last. It never does with people like that. At first, it was just absence. Evan didn't come home that night. Or the next. No messages, no calls, nothing. Which told me exactly where he was. With them. Where he had always been, really. I moved through the house alone for those 2 days with a strange sense of clarity. Not sadness, not panic, just space. I slept better, ate when I wanted, worked without interruption. There were no surprise conversations, no background tension humming under every interaction, no sense that at any moment someone else's emergency was about to become my responsibility. It should have felt like loss. It felt like quiet. On the 3rd day, the noise came back. From the outside. It started at work. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed once. Then again. Then again. Unknown number. I ignored it. After the meeting, I checked. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail. I played it. His father. You think you can just walk away from this? His voice was loud, tight, barely controlled. You're going to regret this. You don't abandon family like this. You don't get to just... I deleted it halfway through. Blocked the number. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Because when pressure doesn't work directly, it spreads. That afternoon, my mom called, which was unusual. We talked, but not midday, not with that tone. Sweetheart, she said carefully, is everything okay? I leaned back in my chair slowly. Why wouldn't it be? A pause. Then, I got a call. Of course she did. What did they say? Another pause, longer this time. That you're refusing to help in an emergency. That Evan's brother is in danger. That you're being cold. Cold. There it was again. The word people use when you stop setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. I exhaled. He owes $35,000 from gambling, I said simply. Silence. Then my mom. Oh. Exactly. They said it was a business issue. Of course they did. Another pause. Then, softer now, grounded. Good for you. I blinked. What? Good for you, she repeated. That's not your responsibility. Something in my chest loosened just slightly. Not because I needed permission. Because it was the first time someone outside the situation reflected the reality back to me without distortion. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, I said. And for the first time, I meant it. Call me if you need anything. I will. I hung up and sat there for a moment. Then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I didn't answer. This time a text came through. From his sister. We know what you did. I stared at the screen. Did. Not didn't do. Did. Interesting. Another message. He got hurt again. That's on you. I didn't respond. I screenshotted it, saved it, and blocked the number. That became a pattern. Calls, messages, accusations, all of it orbiting the same idea that I was responsible for consequences I had refused to prevent. By the end of the week, I had a folder on my laptop. Every voicemail saved, every message documented, dates, times, screenshots, because something in me had shifted from reacting to preparing. Then they crossed a line. Friday morning, I walked into the office and felt it immediately. That subtle shift in energy. People looking up, looking away. My boss was waiting by my desk. "Hey," he said, "can you come to my office for a second?" Neutral tone, but not casual. I followed him in, closed the door behind me. He sat down, folded his hands, then sighed. "We got a complaint." I didn't sit. "From who?" "Anonymous." "Of course. What kind of complaint?" He hesitated just long enough to confirm it was bad. "They're claiming you've been making threatening statements about family members, that you're unstable, potentially violent." I just looked at him. For a full 3 seconds, I didn't say anything. Because sometimes the best response to something that absurd is letting it hang in the air long enough to show itself. "That's completely false," I said finally. "I figured," he said quickly, "but HR has to look into it." "Of course they do." Process. Procedure. Documentation. The same systems that protect people also protect lies. I sat down slowly. "Let me guess," I said. "No details, no specifics." He nodded. "Just concerns." I almost laughed. "We'll need a statement from you," he said. "Just explaining the situation." I nodded once. "I'll give you one." And I did. That afternoon, I sat in a small conference room with HR and explained everything. Not emotionally, not defensively, factually. Marriage, financial history, family involvement, the confrontation, the refusal, the aftermath. I showed them the messages, the voicemails, the escalation. By the time I finished, the HR rep looked more uncomfortable than concerned. "Thank you for documenting all of this," she said carefully. Translation: "This doesn't look like what the complaint described." But they couldn't say that outright. Afterward, my boss walked me back to my desk. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This is a lot." "It's not over," I said. He looked at me, and for the first time, I think he understood that I wasn't being dramatic. I was being accurate. That night, Evan finally called. Not from his number, from a private line. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear what he would say when the noise settled just enough. I picked up. "Hello?" Silence. Then his voice. Natural. Not Natalie. Not the version of my name used in arguments. The softer one. The one he used when he wanted something. "We need to talk." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "About what?" "About us." I closed my eyes briefly. There it was. Not his brother. Not the money. Us. Too late. "There is no us," I said. A pause. "You don't mean that." "I do." "Can we meet?" "No." "Please." Another pause. Longer this time. "Just once," he said. "Face to face." I almost said no again. I should have. But part of me, the part that had spent 5 years trying to make this work, wanted one clean conversation. One moment where he either understood or proved he never would. "Fine," I said. "Coffee, public place." Relief flooded his voice. "Thank you. Tomorrow, 10. "Okay." I hung up and immediately regretted it. The next morning, I got there early, chose a table near the window, sat with my coffee untouched, watched people move past outside, normal lives, normal conversations, no one carrying $35,000 of someone else's consequences in their pocket. He walked in 10 minutes late. Not alone. Of course not. His mother was with him. I stared at them as they approached the table. Didn't stand. Didn't smile. Didn't hide the shift in my expression. "Seriously?" I said. Evan winced slightly. "She just wants to talk." "I'm leaving." I stood. His mother spoke immediately. Sharp. Urgent. "You need to stop this foolishness." I looked at her. Then at him. Then back at her. "I came to talk to my husband," I said. "Not get ambushed." "She's here because you're not listening to reason," she snapped. "Reason." That word again. "Your son gambled away $35,000, I said calmly. "Your family took out loans you can't repay to cover it, and somehow I'm the unreasonable one for not joining that." Her face flushed red. "He made a mistake. He made a series of choices." Evan stepped closer. "Nat, please." I held up a hand. "No." I looked at him fully now. "This is why we're done." His expression cracked slightly. "What?" "This," I repeated. "You can't even have a conversation with me without bringing her. She's my mother, and I'm your wife." Silence. Heavy. Familiar. And this time final. I stepped back. "I'm done," I said, and I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't wait. Didn't give them another chance to turn the conversation into something that served them. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner, like stepping out of a room that had been slowly suffocating you for years. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A message from Evan. Please don't do this. I stared at it for a moment. Then I turned the screen off. Because I already had. The divorce papers arrived a week later. Clean envelope. Standard delivery. My name printed neatly across the front, like this was just another administrative step in a process that hadn't already burned everything down. I opened it at the kitchen counter. Same spot. Same light. Different reality. Evan had filed. Not me. Which for a moment almost made me smile. Because even now, after everything, he still needed to feel like he was the one making the move. Control had always mattered to him, even when it was already gone. I read through the document slowly, methodically, page by page. Division of assets, standard. Sale of the house, expected. Retirement split, fine. Then I got to the part that made me pause. Legal fees, requested from me. Justification, financial abandonment. I let out a quiet breath. There it was, rewritten reality. I hadn't funded his family, so I had abandoned the marriage. Not the years of imbalance, not the explicit statement that I came second, not the pressure, the entitlement, the escalation. On paper, the problem was me. I flipped to the last page. Signature. Firm. Confident. Like this was a winning strategy. I picked up my phone and called a lawyer. By the next afternoon, I was sitting across from her in a glass-walled office, sunlight cutting across the table between us. She read through everything in silence. Once. Then again. Then she leaned back slightly and looked at me. They're serious? I nodded. She wants legal fees, I said. And there's a line about emotional distress compensation. Her eyebrow lifted. How much? 10,000. She actually laughed. Not unprofessional. Just honest. Okay, she said, setting the papers down. We're going to enjoy this. That was the first time anyone had used that word in relation to this situation. Enjoy. I didn't feel that. Not yet. But I understood what she meant. Facts were on my side. And facts don't panic. Start from the beginning, she said. So I did. 5 years. Every emergency. Every transfer. Every adjustment. Every compromise that slowly turned into expectation. I had more records than I realized. Bank statements. Transfers. Credit card charges. Dates. Amounts. Patterns. Because even when I hadn't been ready to say no, some part of me had been keeping score. By the time I finished, she was already making notes. Good, she said. Very good. Good? I repeated. You documented without realizing you were documenting, she said. That's the best kind. She tapped the papers. They're trying to build a narrative. We're going to dismantle it. How? She smiled slightly. With their own behavior. The weeks leading up to court were loud. Not in my house. That stayed quiet. But everywhere else, the noise kept coming. Evan's family didn't slow down. They escalated. His father showed up at my office again. Didn't make it past security this time. Still caused a scene in the lobby. Raised voice. Accusations. My name said too loudly in a place where it didn't belong. I watched it happen from the second floor. Didn't go down. Didn't intervene. Didn't react. Because attention is fuel. And I had stopped supplying it. His sister tried a different approach. She waited outside my softball game one night, leaning against her car like she had all the time in the world. I saw her the moment I stepped off the field. Didn't change direction. Didn't avoid her. Just walked straight past. Natalie, I kept walking. You know they hurt him again, right? I stopped, turned slightly, looked at her. 2 seconds. 3. Then, that's on him. Her expression twisted. You could have prevented it. He could have prevented it. You're unbelievable. And you're enabling him. Her jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought she might say something real, something honest, something that didn't revolve around blame. She didn't. She just shook her head like I had failed some invisible test. Then she got in her car and drove off. That was the pattern. They kept trying to pull me back into the story. I stayed out of it. Until court. Court day was predictable. They came as a group. Of course they did. Evan. His parents. His sister. Even extended relatives I barely recognized. Like numbers might intimidate me. Like presence could replace evidence. I walked in with my lawyer. Just us. Quiet. Prepared. Inside the courtroom, everything felt smaller than I expected. More contained. Less dramatic. Just structure. Procedure. Truth, filtered through rules. Evan didn't look at me at first. When he finally did, it was quick. Uncomfortable. Like eye contact might confirm something he wasn't ready to accept. His lawyer started. Confident. Polished. They framed it cleanly. Financial abandonment. Emotional withdrawal. A sudden, unreasonable shift that destabilized the marriage. I listened. Didn't react. Because I already knew what was coming next. My lawyer stood. Opened a folder. And started with the numbers. Over the course of 5 years, she said, calm and precise, my client contributed approximately 70% of the household expenses. A pause. Then, in addition to that, she provided financial support to the respondent's family, totaling just over $24,000. Murmurs. Small. Contained. But there, she continued. No repayment. Then the statements. Printed. Organized. Clean. Transfers. Dates. Amounts. Patterns. Then the credit card. Cash advances. $3,000 in 1 month alone. All sent to family members. Then the messages. Years of them. Canceled plans. Last-minute demands. Conversations that slowly revealed the imbalance. And finally, that one sentence, displayed clearly, undeniable. My family comes first, you come second. The judge looked up at that. Actually looked. Evan shifted in his seat. His lawyer tried to pivot. Tensions were high, he said. My client was under pressure. No one forced him to say that, my lawyer replied calmly. And no one forced him to mean it. Silence. His mother started crying in the back. Soft at first, then louder. The judge looked over. Ma'am, you are not a party to this case. Please remain quiet. She didn't. She tried to speak. He abandoned us. Ma'am, the judge said again, firmer this time, you will be removed if you continue. That shut her down. Temporarily. Evan's lawyer tried one last angle. Even if we accept the financial history, the sudden withdrawal of support. From his family, my lawyer cut in, not from the marriage. Another pause. Another shift. The judge leaned back slightly, looked at both sides, then said simply, this court is not here to enforce extended family obligations. And just like that, the narrative broke. Clean. Final. The rest moved quickly. No alimony. No legal fees awarded. Assets split per standard. House sold. Retirement divided. Each party responsible for their own costs. Done. Outside the courthouse, the noise came back. Of course it did. His father approached first. Angry. Tired. Desperate. You're really going to let them lose everything? I met his gaze. You took out loans you couldn't afford. His jaw tightened. We helped you. No, I said, you used me. That landed. His brother showed up then. Out of nowhere. Too close. Too fast. You think you're better than us? I didn't step back. I think I make better choices. He shoved me. Not hard, but enough. My lawyer stepped in immediately. Touch her again, she said sharply, already reaching for her phone, and we pressed charges. Security moved fast, pulled him back, separated the moment before it could become something worse. Evan just stood there, watching, not stepping in, not stopping it, not choosing anything. Like always, I turned and walked away. Didn't wait, didn't engage, didn't look back. Because this time, there was nothing left to resolve. The house sold within a month. Good market, clean offer. After everything was settled, I walked away with my share. $85,000. No debt, no obligation, no noise. For the first time in years, everything was mine. The house closed on a Thursday. I signed the final document in a quiet office with a pen that felt heavier than it should have. Not because of what I was losing, because of what I wasn't. No second thoughts, no hesitation, no voice in the back of my mind asking if I should try again. That voice had been trained out of me the moment he said the sentence out loud. My family comes first, you come second. Once you hear that clearly, you can't unhear it. The money hit my account the next morning. $85,000. Clean. Separated. Final. I stared at the number for a long time. Not because it was life-changing, because it represented something I hadn't had in years. Control. No invisible obligations attached. No, just this once, waiting behind it. No one else's crisis already lining up to claim a portion. Just mine. I didn't rush to spend it. Didn't celebrate. Didn't post anything. I transferred most of it into savings. Then I started looking for a place. Something smaller. Simpler. Mine. I found it 2 weeks later. A condo downtown. 2 bedrooms. Open kitchen. Balcony that caught the morning light just right. Clean lines. Neutral walls. No history attached to it except the one I would build. The first night there, I didn't unpack everything. I didn't need to. I set up the bed, put a lamp on the nightstand, left the rest in boxes, and sat on the floor with my back against the wall, looking out at the city lights. No noise, no tension, no one walking in unannounced, no one asking for anything. It felt unfamiliar. Then slowly it started to feel like peace. I found out what happened to Evan's family the same way I had learned everything else in that marriage. Secondhand, fragmented, unfiltered. His parents lost their house. The loan they took out to cover his brother's debt had terms they couldn't meet. Balloon payment. Interest stacking faster than they could keep up. Foreclosure didn't come all at once. It crept in, then took everything. They moved in with his sister. That didn't last. Her husband, quiet, patient for years from what I'd seen, finally hit his limit. The pawned wedding ring was apparently the breaking point. He filed for divorce. One more collapse. Same pattern. Different house. His brother disappeared. Left the state. No warning. No repayment. Just gone. Exactly the way people like him always go when consequences finally catch up. Evan tried to hold it together. At first, used his share of the settlement to help his parents. Tried to stabilize things. Fix what couldn't be fixed. Money disappeared fast. Because money always does when it's poured into a system that was never built to sustain itself. Last I heard, he was working longer hours, taking extra shifts, trying to keep up with problems that multiplied faster than he could solve them. And the worst part? It still wasn't enough. Because families like his don't change when things get harder. They just look for someone else to absorb the pressure. Only this time, there was no one left. My name stopped coming up in those conversations. Not because they respected my absence, because they resented it. Apparently, I had ruined everything. That was the story. The version that made the most sense to them. Because accepting reality would mean accepting responsibility. And that had never been their strength. I moved on. Not dramatically. Not all at once. Just steadily. I furnished the condo slowly. Picked things I actually liked. Not things that fit someone else's expectations. Not things that came with stories attached. No hand-me-down furniture from his mother. No decorations chosen to impress guests I didn't want. Just clean space. Intentional choices. Mine. Work stabilized. The noise from the complaint disappeared quietly. No follow-up. No consequences. Because there had never been anything real behind it. Just pressure. And pressure only works when you respond to it. I didn't. A few months later, I met someone. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. He was a teacher. Calm. Grounded. The kind of person who listened without waiting for his turn to speak. The kind of person who had his own life fully built before I stepped into it. No chaos, no emergencies, no hidden expectations. When he talked about his family, it sounded normal. They had dinners. They argued sometimes. They showed up for each other, but no one treated anyone like a resource. No one measured love in dollars. We took it slow, because I wasn't interested in repeating anything, and he didn't rush me, which strangely mattered more than anything else. The last message from Evan came months later. New number, short, direct. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know the answer, because I wanted to get the response right. Not emotional. Not reactive. Accurate. I typed, your family destroyed itself by treating people like ATMs. I just stopped participating. I read it once, twice. Then I sent it. No follow-up. No reply. Just silence. I blocked the number. That was the end. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just finished. My therapist asked me once if I felt guilty. I didn't have to think about it. No, I said. Why not? Because guilt requires responsibility, and I wasn't responsible for any of it. They had choices. They made them. They had consequences. They faced them. None of that had anything to do with me. The truth is, there was no grand revenge. No elaborate plan. No moment where everything flipped perfectly in my favor. There was just one decision. One boundary. One refusal to keep playing a role that was slowly erasing me. They called it abandonment. They called it cold. They called it selfish. I call it something else. Self-respect. And honestly, best decision I ever made.